What is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Christopher the Artist here on General Spear Creates, and welcome back to another episode here from my ARC Trooper of Commander Storm. Today we're going to be embarking on the next part of the build, which is going to be involving the chest and back plates for the Clone Trooper armor. This is based off of the Phase 1 animated style armor, and it's actually a lot easier to build than you think. For this build, you're going to need to print out the patterns that are going to be in the description below, as well as you're going to need the following materials. Standard EVA foam floor mat material. You're going to need also some polystyrene material, specifically the 16th inch and 8th inch variants, that which you can find at Hobby Lobby, a lot of different craft stores. You can also find it where I found it at, which is Tap Plastics. You're also going to need some Loctite super glue, specifically the 5-second liquid super glue, not the gel kind. The gel will run and make it such that the bond won't be as secure on initial touch. I use Loctite super glue for a lot of projects. It's fairly cheap and easy to use. You also don't need a whole lot of it, so it's definitely going to be very useful. Then you're also going to need some cutting materials, either your utility knife, craft blade, X-Acto knife, or in my case, what I've been using quite frequently is the bandsaw. The bandsaw does very well against foam as well as plastic, so it's a very good material to use. So we're going to spend some time doing some overviews and some time-lapse, and we'll get started.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so the first thing you're going to want to do is, of course, cut out and print out your patterns. You will need to attach a few sections just to make sure it works. And then once you're done with that, we're going to go ahead and start tracing those patterns out onto the foam. I'm working on the chest plates here first, just to go with the flow and everything. And we're doing both the right side, and you're going to flip the template over eventually and go to the left side. This is also the front section of the collar that I'm working on. Everything I'm working on right now is for the front part of the clone cuirass. Now we're working on the lower chest plates. I'm essentially doing the right side here first, tracing it all out on the foam, and then I'm flipping it over and basically lining it up right with that line and tracing the left side, so it's all one piece. Now we got the back plates, and it is good to note that there are some styrene patterns in this setup. Ignore those for right now and just focus on the foam templates and making sure that they're all together, and then we're going to go ahead and trace and do the same thing for the foam. I got the right and left side of the back box ready to go on for the back. And then I also have some shoulder straps that I'm working on for the base of the shoulder straps. I'm also working on some detail at the same time. The O11 detail specifically. Those will be put onto the back plate at some point. And then I'm also working on the continued back detail. The back section of the collar here, which of course will be eventually put on. And then I'm working on some side panels. These are a few specific details that will make a frame on the back box itself. I'll show you how that comes together. But essentially it's 2 long sides and 2 short sides. Now we're working on the either the top or the bottom of the plate there. I think it's the top. And then we got the bottom back section here. So we're pretty much all set to go after that. Except for one more piece. And I forgot. This yeah, that's right. This is the side. They're basically the outer frame of the back plate itself. This is where the connection to the shoulder straps go, the connection to the sides of the chest plate. That's pretty much it. Now we're kind of doing a little bit of a montage of just cutting out all the pieces. There are some bevels that are for certain pieces that is noted on each of the patterns, whether there is a bevel or not. Focus right now on getting all the pieces just cut out in general. This will help kind of not disrupt the flow of your work and making sure, of course, that your cuts are nice and clean. Now, every bit that I'm doing here can be done either by using a X-Acto blade, a box cutter, or utility knife. I just like using the bandsaw because I get nice clean cuts. I don't have to replace the blade nearly as often. In fact, for this entire project, I've never really had to replace the blade. Now, I probably will eventually need to replace the blade, but I don't have to worry about that at all for this project. I just have to worry about the fact that I got good tension on the blade for the bandsaw, and making sure that, you know, I keep my fingers clear. So yeah, I'm pretty much just going through all the pieces. I skipped a little bit over just because I filmed the entire process, but you don't need to see the entire process. You just need to basically just get the gist of what's going on. Any circle details like that, I always get to kind of a point on the right side. And then I just kind of follow the blade around the curvature and just make it really nice and smooth. The bandsaw really doesn't like it when you swivel the blade back and forth. It needs to be nice and straight. Otherwise, it can get off kilter. It can actually get the blade itself off the tracks. Just be careful and be wary of the fact that you are not forcing the material through the bandsaw. You are gradually and kind of manipulating where the cut is happening, and you're just kind of guiding it on through. You're not forcing anything on the tool itself. That works for a lot of tools. You gotta let the tool do the work. And now I'm going through and I am actually setting my stand to a 45-degree angle, and I'm going ahead and I'm beveling all the edges that are required to bevel now. And if you need to go back through your templates, you can go right ahead. Unfortunately, I didn't really get a good camera angle on the beveling process just because I had stuff in the way. But I will say that the pectorals and the small side pieces for the pectorals are needed to be beveled, and then definitely the outer frame to the back box will need to be beveled as well. All 4 pieces there, if I remember correctly. And now I'm just going through and I'm doing some cleanup, specifically on the chest section. I'm using a Dremel with a sanding drum. Bear with me as I don't actually have the sanding drum on correctly, which, you know, I'm working with, but it's okay. And definitely use a face mask. Eye protection is probably advised. I know I don't have any on this at this point, but it's definitely advised because it's foam particles, and you don't want to be breathing that stuff in, especially. So yeah, we're basically going through and just rounding off of the edges. Ideally, for the collar, you will actually probably want to glue these halves up first and then Dremel around them, just to make them a little bit nicer. But you can totally do what I'm doing there and sand them all down. And now we're getting the rounded edge of the abdomen, or not the abdomen, but the lower chest here, and then also some of the details for the 011. It's just all about going slow, letting the tool do the work again. And now we're ready to begin heat forming and gluing pieces together. I'm starting on the collar first, just because that's easy enough to do, and I'm using the Loctite super glue, and it's making very fast work of gluing the pieces together. And now, of course, I'm working on the pectorals. I'm gluing the pieces together where that dart was in the lower section. I had a little bit of glue spill out, so I am going ahead and I'm making sure that I have nice clean edges, and then I'm gluing the side pieces on as well. And I'm repeating the process for the left side. And heating up the foam with a ceramic heat gun does several things. One, it allows you to manipulate the foam and move it in a way that you want. And two, it seals it all in and gets it really nice and ready for like plastic dip and painting. Now I'm working on the lower section here, and first things first is I am heating it up and I'm curving it into the desired piece, and then I'm just gluing the side pieces there directly and fully to the lower section there itself. It will bend a little bit, and then I'm basically just gluing the lower chest not on the line itself, or excuse me, the pectoral, not on the line itself of the lower chest, but I'm kind of going just outside of it. There is a little bit of a gap between the left and right pectoral on top of the lower chest, and that's what I'm indicating. That's why that center line is important. That center line too also just keeps everything nice and straight. You can kind of follow that along with the chest. Now, there is a little bit of a gap after, I didn't really realize this all fully 100% until about now, but there is a gap, and it's actually kind of useful to have this gap just because we can press those sections together a little bit further. It's not quite a point that the pectorals meet up once they hit the collar, but it's pretty darn close. And I'm just kind of reinforcing it now. There's a little bit of a gap that you need to put some extra foam behind. And now I'm working on the first of the styrene pieces. This is 1/16 inch styrene that I'm working with, and I'm simply tracing the pectoral plates that go on the bottom and fill in the gap on the front. And all I'm doing here with the utility knife is I'm just scoring the surface. I'm not actually cutting all the way through it, I'm just scoring it, and then you can break the piece off, or the excess off, and get a nice clean cut on the styrene. That works really, really well. You could use, like the bandsaw and everything, but it's easy enough with the utility knife. With the 1/8 inch plastic, you could definitely use a utility knife, but sometimes using a bandsaw, or if you've got one, a table or circular saw, definitely a little bit more advantageous because it is thicker material. Now, the stuff I'm working on with regards to the panel, the plates here, it does stick out and protrude out from the chest plate on the corner a little bit, so you'll probably need to sand that down, but all should be good there. Now we're working on the remaining styrene pieces. I'm first off creating the back plate surface out of 1/8 inch styrene, and then I'm also using for the 011 decal, I'm using the circle, or the circle decal is 16th inch styrene. Sorry, haven't had coffee yet this morning when I was recording this overlay. And you want to just be careful, of course, cutting all of that out. And of course, as you can see, I'm using it all with the utility blade. Fairly easy and self-explanatory. And now we're getting ready to form the back. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to form the back pieces itself. I'm gluing up the center, and ideally what you want to do is you want to heat up the sections first, because heating up super glue when it's first laid down and when it hasn't had a chance to cure actually lets off a little bit of a smelly fume. My eyes were watering a little bit at this point in the process. And then we're gluing the outer box together, and these are the ones in which you will want the beveled edges. Note on the side pieces, the bevels only go up a certain amount of way, only up to the first corner there, where the box surface is going to go. And then, of course, the side pieces there, creating nice 90-degree angles on all those fronts. And now we're fitting the box itself to the chest frame. And I'm going in little by little, and I'm starting off in the corner, and I'm working my way towards the center. Now, this whole process does have a little bit of a curved edge. And what I do to kind of help reinforce things, not only to make sure that curve stays, but I'm putting glue, and you'll see, especially on this side panel here in a second, I'm gluing it down. And to help reinforce, I'm running a bead of glue on the top right where the sections join up, and then I'm running a piece of foam to kind of just to seal that in, and that really reinforces the foam at that point to be, you know, stay put and stay glued. I repeat the same thing on the other side, though not as well. There is a little bit of a seam gap at the end of this process, but it works out pretty well in the end. Now we got the plate, and I'm just simply running a bead of glue all the way around on the box itself. And then I'm carefully lining up the edges to make sure that they're nice and flush with the edge of the plate. If you get a little bit of glue run out, that's okay. You can definitely wipe that up with an excess piece of foam. And now we're working on the sides. This doesn't really matter what top or bottom you start with, but I'm starting with a long side first and then getting the side pieces ready. I'm putting glue on the ends, or rather on one end, to butt up against the long piece, running a seam of glue just to make sure it stays on the inside all the way around, and then putting the last long side on top. Like I said, it doesn't matter whether you start from the top or the bottom, just to make sure that you choose one side and go with it. Now I'm just lining up the 011 details. These are ironically the same details that are used on Stormtroopers, interestingly enough, for some of the variants. And now we got the O detail for the O part, and now you're set to kind of heat seal all this in. And be careful when you're heat sealing the back section at the stage not to hit the styrene too much, just basically because you could end up melting it, and styrene, when you heat it up, does have a tendency to curl, so just be careful when you go over those sections. Okay, now we're working on the shoulder pieces, and I will note before I get, too much into this commentary, first off, that I will be offering some armor kits for sale, and instead of the styrene detail that I'm going to be putting on top of this, you could definitely do this for your own armor if you want, but just as easily, and in fact, this is a much easier process than what I'm doing here, and I wish I'd thought of this, is you could take a wood burning kit with a wood burning, bit basically, and carve in the detail directly into the foam. You don't need the styrene necessarily, but this kind of gets an added detail. Only reason why I did this at this point is because I didn't have a wood burning tool. I think I had just ordered it, but I also wanted to desperately get started on this video, and this was definitely a way, in case you didn't have a wood burning tool and you had some extra plastic and you still had a good craft blade or utility knife, you could definitely do this process. It does take longer, but it's still a nice result in the end. And I taped up that piece, the paper that is, because I am going to be doing this again twice. So I taped it all up and making sure that it's ready for when I do the next shoulder pad. Now I will say my fingers at this point, especially when I got into the second shoulder pad, were kind of cramping at this point. So this was a good result, but you just gotta be careful. You gotta be careful when you're working with this stuff. So, just going through, cutting all the pieces. I'm removing the small sections and keeping the bigger sections because I want there to be gaps in where the foam is. Now, a thing to note, and this is probably something you should do, don't curve the foam first, because that actually throws off the gap a little much. And I ended up doing it on the second piece, and what's really interesting is that even though the pieces, they line up the same, I think there was something off in my measurements, or there's something that happened because, and you'll see here in a moment that I'm actually going to need to add extra foam to one of the ends, because there's a little bit of an overlap that I didn't quite foresee, but that's okay. And you'll notice there in that quick glue shot that it overhangs the foam, you know, not a ton, but it does do a certain amount. And now we're going to go ahead and clean up the edges on the shoulder straps. Kind of just rounding them off. This is where a bandsaw really, really helps. You can even use a belt sander or even some sandpaper to do this. Sandpaper, of course, would need to be flattened on the surface, and then you just run it back and forth. But a belt sander will easily do this process if you don't have a bandsaw. And now, gluing the pieces together. I'm starting with the shoulder straps first, kind of just getting those in place, and then I'm going to work my way and get the collar done. And I'll move the camera here in just a moment, but essentially I am doing the same as I did on the chest plate for the back plate, and I'm lining up all the seams and everything. I do have some registration lines to match up with the center, and then it's basically just gluing it into place. At this point, you may think, oh, it's going to be really tough to get these pieces to, you know, work together. You've seen so far how much I've been kind of forcing the foam to, you know, do my will, as it were. So just be patient with it. Just be patient with it. The shoulder straps I am gluing into place. I'm running glue on the outside just to make sure it stays. I actually do end up off camera putting a few clamps down. Very carefully, of course. They are small clamps, but you're pretty much set to go at this point. It looks pretty good.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and there you have it. It looks pretty darn snazzy, if I do say so myself. For me, in my particular build, what I'm going to be able to do, actually, I have shims installed that I installed off camera, but it turns out that I can actually get in and out of this chest armor and back armor all attached with no problems whatsoever. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just glue the seams right on the sides and then have that pretty much all set. I also have Velcro attached, basically, because I wanted to test out how the shoulders were on top of all this, and it actually turns out pretty darn nice. I'm pretty excited for how well these are. This is also fairly lightweight. It's also got a little bit of room, such that when we do the abdomen and the cod piece for the remainder of the torso, it's going to be fairly exciting, and that will be in the next video when we do the abdomen and the cod piece. But thank you all so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all learned something today in this particular episode. I've been bouncing around doing a lot of different videos and whatnot, trying to get the first few out, starting with the helmet, of course, doing the arms, and then also, of course, doing the chest and back armor, which turned out fantastic. No, and then, of course, like I said, moving on to the next episode, we're going to focus on the abdomens and the cod piece. Those are fairly simple pieces to make. I already have the templates pretty much ready to go. They will be a part of the next episode. And then after that, we're going to be working on some of the leg armor, as well as including the thighs and the shins, as well as the boot toppers that we'll have on top of the boots. And then after that is pretty much going to be accessories, which is going to be pretty fantastic. Thank you all so much for watching again, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all enjoyed. Feel free, of course, as always, to Hulk smash that like button, especially if you like the video and you want to see more. Definitely smash that like button. If you want to comment in the comment section below what your favorite bits are of this build so far, as well as commenting maybe what future builds we could do, especially out of foam. Thank you all for watching, everybody. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe. And for everyone, may the force be ever in your favor.